So I'm going to tell you a couple of stories today. I'm going to tell a personal sort of career story, and then I'm going to tell a story about how we used research to build some features on stories. And then at the end, I'm going to kind of share some tips and tricks on how to do this type of research. So about just over 2 years ago, I was looking for a new job. I'd been working in design and innovation consulting for about 8 years. And I was an associate director of strategy at the time for a company called Smart Design. And so my job is really to help clients build new, better customer experiences, or help come up with product and service ideas to help businesses grow. So it's a really fun experience. I got to work with some very talented people. And I got to work in a whole broad range of industries, from things like financial services to healthcare. And I even got to design a range of pet toys for dogs, which was probably one of the most fun projects I've ever done. But I was also feeling pretty burnt out. 8 years doing one thing, it's a pretty long time. Consulting, it's a lot of work. And I was just tired of putting all of this effort into these great presentations and strategies and visions and seeing them be archived in some company and going nowhere. So I was thinking what I wanted to do next, and I was just kind of reflecting a lot about kind of what I valued and what I wanted to do. And reflecting back on that time, I think one of the biggest kind of learnings or things I took away from the experience was the power of talking to people. So at the heart of design thinking, which was like what the consultancies I was working for were doing, is this notion that you're designing for and with people. And before even kind of beginning to put pen to paper and think about what the idea or what the solution could be, you're always going out and you're understanding who's your market, what are their needs, desires, and wants. And that's the thing that you use to kind of inspire what you build. So, and I just kind of going through this process so many times, just witnessed the power of it firsthand and saw how it could inspire all these great ideas and things that could be put out into the world. So I was really looking for a company that was like very people-centric, really valued their users and sort of wanted to design for them. I was also really interested in tech and startups. As a consultant, you kind of, often the clients are trying to play catch up to these companies, and I've been studying sort of innovation and disruption for all this time. And it just struck me as a place like these types of companies, this is where ideas happen. They can move quick, and they can think big, and they can create really great experiences. So I'd love to go there. But I wasn't really sure about what I would do in one of these companies. As they said, my title was a strategist, which really could mean anything. It's like the broadest job title you could possibly have. And I was like, well, maybe I could do product management. It kind of seems like there's synergy there. But kind of looking more into it, I was like, you know what, I don't think I'm qualified for that, and I certainly don't have like the technical know-how that's often required for the role. So the other option was UX research. But I was also a little bit apprehensive about that one. It kind of struck me that a lot of tech companies and kind of these types of companies, they use research, which is great, but it often happens a little bit further down the process. Like the idea is defined and research is used as a tool for testing, usability, and refinement. So anyway, to cut a very long career dilemma story short, I had lunch with a former colleague who was working at Instagram. She basically convinced me that I should talk to him about joining as a researcher. So I met the team, and a couple of things stood out to me. One, they were really, really passionate about people and design for people. In fact, that's one of the company values, people first. It was a really strong design culture, which I personally valued. And then just everyone I met seemed very, very talented, and they were just like genuinely nice people. So I took a bit of a leap of faith and I said, very, very fortunate in that they offered me a job. And I was like, I'll take this on and we'll see what it's like to be a researcher. And they seem to really value people, and hopefully I'll get to do the work that I enjoy doing. And I got put on the stories team, and I was actually the first embedded researcher on stories. So, an incredible opportunity, really, really exciting. So I spent time, as I onboarded, I spent time talking to the team, and I was sort of like having them explain their product development process, what they were hoping to get from me, how they used research. And my kind of perception from the outside, it was right. They were really excited to have someone who could go test their ideas and get feedback quickly and often. So I'm going to kind of stop here and say there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think that this is a really integral thing to do in the product development cycle. And I kind of think it's the thing that separates, great products from average products. It's sort of where the craft comes. And obviously, stories, very, very successful. So this process had been working for them to date. But I could also see that they were struggling a bit. After the initial launch of stories, they were trying to launched a bunch of features, but none of them had really gained traction with users. None of them had really kind of moved the needle, and they weren't hitting the goals that they were targeting. And it just sort of seemed like they were maybe a little bit lost. Like they didn't quite know where to take stories. It was like so successful, but where is this thing going, or where do we want to take it? And as I said earlier, I really believe in the power of people and using people to help define the thing that you build. And I saw this as a bit of an opportunity. I was like, oh, maybe research can help kind of create some direction and help inspire what we can build next. And so I decided to basically go on a crusade and try and sort of demonstrate how this would pan out for teams. So around the time I joined, the polling sticker, so this is like a quick way of polling your friends in stories, asking them sort of A/B questions, had just launched. And this actually came out of a hackathon. So an engineer had an idea one day in a hackathon, and the team really liked it, so they launched it. And it was really successful. Like, it was the first thing that gained, got a lot of traction in stories. And so there was a lot of energy and excitement in the team around this thing. And they'd run all these brainstorms, came up with all these ideas. And so they came to me and was like, hey, we've got all these ideas. Can you do some user testing for us? And I'm like, great. That's not exactly kind of what I want to do, but it seems important. And as someone sort of new to the team and also my little personal crusade, I sort of asked them, I was like, okay, well, what problem were we solving? What were you guys brainstorming against? And they were like, oh yeah, we were trying to come up with ideas to get people to share more stories. And so I'm sort of sitting there, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Kind of feels like that's an Instagram problem, right? Like, having people share more, that's great for the platform, it's good for our ecosystem, it's good for our business. But I struggle to imagine that someone's just sitting at home and they're like, I really wish there was just like another way for me to like share more of my life on social media. So I sort of like pushed them there. I was like, well, I don't know if that's the problem. Like, why do you think people use stories? Like, why do you think they're using polling sticker? And the answer I got back was like very murky. It just didn't seem like we had real clarity there. And so I was like really excited. I'm like, this is a great opportunity to kind of do this early research and go ask these big questions. And so I kind of proposed, like, let's go out there and understand how stories fits into people's lives and like, why do they use social media? And it's going to be great. And I got a ton of pushback. But I actually think that's completely fair. I'm like new to the company. I'm this unknown entity. And the teams in Instagram, they work incredibly quickly. They're extremely action-oriented. They're shipping features like all the time. And when you go ask these big questions, what do you do with that? You don't really know the answer, and you don't know how you're going to action that. Whereas, like, if you go out with 5 concepts, you're going to come back and be like, oh, we should, to pick this direction and use a little bit of that one, and we can move forwards. So we basically netted out on a compromise. It was like, hey, let's go out and sort of ask some of these bigger questions, but we can also, test the ideas that we have, so we can move that forwards too. So we went out into the field, and we began talking to teenagers. And we began talking about how do they use Instagram, when do they post on stories, what does a typical day at school look like even. And as we spoke to more and more people, it kind of became apparent that we need to take a step back. And we actually needed to focus on understanding a much bigger problem and asking a much bigger question. How do people make friends, and how do relationships grow? So as we dug into this question, what we began to understand was like the way in which people act at different stages in their relationships online is actually very similar to the way they're using Instagram and how they want to, offline, and the way they're using Instagram and how they want to interact online. So let's take a moment, and I want everyone to imagine you're a teenager, and you and I are complete strangers, but we've just started school. It's first day of term, it's a new school, and by the end of the year, we're going to be best friends. So how do we get there? So at the beginning, we joined the school, and we walk down the corridor. I don't know you. I'm probably not going to acknowledge you. But a little bit of time passes. Maybe you're in the same class as me. Maybe it turns out that we have like a mutual friend who knows us as well. And so now when I'm walking down the hallway, I'm probably going to stop and say, hey, well, how's it going? Or just give you like the little head nod. So let's say a little bit more time passes. Maybe we get assigned to work together on a project in a class. And our mutual friend invites us to hang out in a social setting, so we hang out a little bit socially. So now I'm probably going to consider you a friend. And when I kind of see you in the hallway, I'm going to stop and say, hey, how's it going? How was your weekend? Did you see the football last night? Or whatever it is. So let's imagine even more time passes. We spend more and more time together socially. Turns out that we share really similar interests. I feel I can really trust you. You accept me, which is great. and we're like seeking each other out, just wanting to spend more and more time together. So now we're probably best friends. And so, if I'm walking down the corridor at school, I'm probably actually doing that with you, but if I wasn't, I'd stop and I'd have a deep conversation. I'd talk to you in detail. And what we kind of realized is like Instagram is playing a role throughout this entire journey of friendships. People are using our products at different stages to kind of get to know each other and to deepen relationships. And so we saw like our broadcasting products, Stories, Feed, and Profile, really helping you at that early stage in these relationships, kind of getting to know each other. And then our messaging products, like Direct Messaging and now Threads, is a great way when you want to have like more of an intimate, deeper conversation with someone. So we also thought a bit about the hallway interactions that I just went through, and kind of realized that actually we have some of these interactions baked into our experience at Instagram. So a like is kind of like the hi in the hallway. It's pretty lightweight. It's something that you feel comfortable doing to an acquaintance. It's something that you do for everyone. A comment, it's a little bit more forward. It's a little bit more personal. You're putting a little bit more effort into it. So probably not something you would do to someone you didn't really know, but if you're friends with someone, you're going to leave a comment on their post. And then there's messaging, which I spoke about, much more intimate. It's something kind of reserved for best friends or close friends. And then obviously this research was about the polling sticker and what we should do next. So what we realized was like polling sticker just sat in this really sweet spot between acquaintance to friends. It's sort of a nice, lightweight way to interact, maybe a little bit heavier than a like. You're learning something about each other, and it's a really good conversation starter. And we, taking a step back and just thinking about this more broadly and thinking about the life stage that we're designing for, when you're at that stage in your life, you're just hungry for friends. Like, you want to make new friends, you want to deepen the relationships you have with existing friends. Like, this is kind of one of the core needs of being a teenager. And so we just realized, like, that's what we're doing. That's what we're helping people with. Like, that's the purpose of our product. So we use this continuum to drive like a bunch of brainstorms and build out a roadmap. And from that, we launched quick reactions, so a very lightweight way of responding to someone's story, so kind of more for an acquaintance. Emoji slider, maybe a little bit similar to polling sticker. And then we launched question sticker. So question sticker is a way in which you can like ask people to send you questions and you can respond, or you can ask your followers a question and they kind of respond back. So question sticker exploded. Like it sort of took over Instagram. It was just so hugely adopted. There was like so much excitement around it, and it became so heavily adopted that it was a meme. Now you're doing probably pretty well when your product or feature suddenly turns into a meme on the internet. So this kind of thinking about question sticker was like, wow, it really just offered people a way to get to know each other. Like it gave them permission to interact and start a conversation. So there's just obviously this latent need here. And seeing all this data really kind of helped confirm our hypothesis around like the role we play in people's lives and like the real need that we're solving for. And so it's just given us a lot of confidence to invest in this space. And now, really the mission of the Stories team is to help you deepen the relationships with the people you already know and build relationships with like new friends. And so since then, we've launched the quiz sticker and chat sticker, and there are many more to come. And it's really helped create differentiation from our competitors, and it's really contributed to the overall growth of Stories. But going back to sort of my personal story and thinking about sort of the power of foundational research, it also helped me build the case for why we would do this type of research, why there's sort of value in asking these bigger questions. And so now when the team goes out or like is thinking about what's the next thing we can build, research is integrated throughout before we even kind of conceive the idea all the way through to execution. So hopefully I've convinced you that maybe you should be doing more of this type of research or getting out earlier and talking to your users. So I want to share a couple of tips because I do think this type of research is a bit different to sort of user testing and things like that. So the first one is ask big questions. By trying to sort of really focus on trying to understand people's behaviors in this space, their needs in that space, their mental model, how they kind of think about tackling the problem that they're trying to solve, even their emotions, like how do they want to feel and how are they feeling. So for us, we could have gone out and asked people like, what are you using polling sticker for? What do you think of these ideas? But we kind of stumbled across this much bigger question, and that opened up a lot of opportunities for us. And so asking broader questions, it helps you sort of understand your product in a much broader context. It really helps you understand how your product sits in someone's lives. And what that does is it opens up your mind to ideas and opportunities that you maybe wouldn't have seen or otherwise considered. Second one is get beneath the surface of what is said. So use research for inspiration and don't be too literal. When I propose doing this type of research to a team, I often get this quote thrown back at me. If I'd asked for people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse every thought. I'm like, okay, yeah, great. But I think that's true. I think if you'd asked people that, that's exactly what would come up. But I would hazard a guess to say if you'd asked them why they wanted a faster horse, observed how they were traveling, talked to them about kind of what their ideal journey would look like, you probably come up with other criteria such as convenience, reliability, comfort, as well as speed. And pair that with his vision for what you could do with technology, you can get a car. And I'll be honest and I'll say, I don't really believe that people know what they want. When you're kind of doing an interview with someone, you're talking to someone and using research, what they're sharing is based on their experiences from the past and then their experiences today. And our job as product people is to kind of imagine the future, imagine how design can help, or imagine what this technology can do. And so you need to go really deep when you talk to people. You need to go kind of beneath what's observed and start just asking why. I ask why so many times in an interview. And I'm trying to probe into, why, how are they doing that thing? Okay, great. Well, why did they do that thing? What's the problem they solve? Why is it even a problem? How are they feeling when they're doing that? How do they want to feel? I'm trying to kind of understand the problem in as much depth as possible. And I think when you go that deep, it really helps you identify the true problem that your product and team should be solving, and it just helps kind of inspire all these ideas. And then the third one is talk to extremes. So at this stage in the process, when you don't really know what to build or who maybe you should be building for, it's really good to talk to a variety of people. And by talking to extreme users, you kind of see this these really stark contrasts. And so it helps you understand the problem a little bit better. On a recent project for Instagram, we were exploring the future of sharing. So how will people share on social media in 2 or 3 years' time? So we could have gone out and we could have interviewed a bunch of people who sort of exhibit the average behaviors that we see in our data today. But instead, we went out and we spoke to sort of power sharers, people whose life is online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then very private people, people who are not on social media, barely on the internet, they really value their privacy. And what that did was it helped us see the superpowers of sharing and social media. So it really helped us identify the core value of the thing that we're doing. And then it also helped us see all these barriers, all the things that get in the way and all the problems that you have and the reasons why you won't want to do it. And so it made us look at the problem very differently. So I think foundational research, this type of research earlier in the process, kind of offers you 3 core benefits. Number 1, inspiration. So it inspires solutions that you wouldn't have otherwise considered. It kind of broadens your horizons, and I think it even challenges your personal biases a bit. 2, it provides focus. It kind of understanding the problem in this much depth, you really understand all the criteria and requirements sort of up front, and so it gives you confidence in your decision making, which also leads to just being able to build things quicker. And then confidence is the third one. Oh, sorry, focus. Okay, confidence. So it increases your confidence in product market fit, right? When you go out and do research at this stage in the process, you're going out and talking to your market first before you even think about what the product is. So you just feel very, very confident that when it launches, it's going to be successful. And what that tends to do, I've seen, is it kind of reduces the number of cycles or pivots that you have to do around, down the line, which obviously causes a lot of chaos and just slows you down. So at the end of the day, my guess is that for a lot of us in this room, our motivation to do what we do is kind of grounded in the belief that we can help improve people's lives. So we can sit in a meeting room as we're thinking about our next product and look at the data and talk about the business needs, and we can even brainstorm people problems and what we think people want. But people are missing. The voice of the user is missing. And so I'd really encourage you, as you're thinking about your next project, to go out there earlier. Go out there and talk to your users and your customer. Try and deeply understand why they're using their product, or even just their problem in this much broader space. Understand their needs, wants, and desires. Pair that with the awesome technology you have, the amazing design talent you have, the vision that you have, and put it all together to build really great, meaningful products for people. Thanks.